Warning, this podcast is intended for consenting adults. We're talking about all things non-monogamy, which means some of our conversations are going to get down and dirty. Please know we are not professionals, and these are strictly our views and opinions and in no way represent the opinions of our employers. We respect others' opinions as we know everyone in the world of non-monogamy does it differently. Hope you enjoy.
Hey everybody, welcome to another exciting episode of 3 Shades Deeper. I'm your host, Anthony Grayman, and as always, I am joined by my beautiful wife,
Pinky Grayman,
and salacious girlfriend,
Ava Moore.
How are you ladies doing?
absolutely
Fabulous.
magnificent.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear. Recently I've had this deja vu feeling. Have you ever had that before where like you've experienced something before and it's over and over? I would almost say almost like that movie Groundhog Day where you just keep on repeating the same thing over and over. If any of you who are listening haven't seen it, it's an excellent movie. Definitely give it a watch.
Yeah, I'm kind of having the same feeling too. How about you, Pinky?
Yeah, it's been coming and coming and coming over again on the rotation schedule.
But yeah, practice makes perfect. That's all I have to say. So while we are going through a lot of things right here, we are happy that people are starting to listen to this new segment, and we hope to continue to bring in more interesting guests and discuss interesting topics. And speaking of guests, we have actually 4 guests with us today. And if you listen to our little quickie that we did for Splash Takeovers, you might have heard a little 10 or 15 minute interview with Swinky Life and the Accidental Swingers. And we got such a good response from that, we decided to get them on and have a longer discussion with them. So, without any further ado, we would like to introduce you to Swinky Life and the Accidental Swingers podcast hosts.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
Hi. So I'll start.
Okay.
I'm Phoenix. I am one of the co-founders of Swinky Life, and I am joined here today by my girlfriend Marina and my wife Crimson and my metamor Tristan.
And Tristan and I, this is Marina, and Tristan and I are the host of the Accidental podcast that we were alluding to. So that's us.
That is us.
There we go.
So hi everybody.
Hey, thank you
Hi.
very much for that lovely introduction. And once again, thank you for sitting down with a longer form interview with us. We appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Sure. Absolutely.
Just in case people haven't heard, we'll just get a little bit of background. What got you all into this lifestyle or non-monogamy? If you want to just give a brief overview.
Sure. And I can start. So Tristan and I got into the lifestyle about 8 years ago.
7 years
7
ago.
years ago.
7 years ago.
And for us, it was accidental. That's why we call our podcast The Accidental Swingers. And if you want to hear that whole story, just listen to the podcast. It's all there ad nauseum, how we accidentally fell into swinging. But we entered the non-monogamy lifestyle, and we made a lot of mistakes, and we had a lot of things we had to work through. And we thought we would share some of that information with folks in the form of a podcast. So we did that. And in our journeys and our travels, one of the events that we love going to is called Naughty New Orleans. And in our second year at Naughty in New Orleans, we meet this couple. And it's the couple that's sitting right next to us now. And so we all met at a swinger event and hit it off, and still hitting it off this many years later. And out of our connection was actually how Swinky Life kind of formed. You want to explain
Right.
that?
So for Crimson and I, we came into the lifestyle kind of a little more classically, looking for ways to keep things interesting and shake things up and explore some new fun stuff. And we actually started exploring kink first. And then that kind of led us into swinging later on.
That's
And
kind
that's
of
all.
similar to my story. I came in through kink BDSM and then kind of rolled
Right.
into swinging.
And we hear both versions of that story often in our travels. So I think that's a relatively common pathway for lots of people to start somewhere and then explore the other side. And all of that, as we talk more and explore more, all of that goes into the story of where did Swinky life come from and what's it all about and what are we trying to do with it. So we started in kink and then found our way into swinging. That was trundling along really well. We were in the lifestyle a couple of years ahead of you guys. And then, as Marina said, we all met up at a lifestyle convention, Naughty in New Orleans, kind of hit it off, and realized that we only lived a short drive from one another. So we kind of made a deal that after we got back, we'd give it a couple weeks, then we'd get together for dinner and see if there was still sparks and energy, and there was. The rest has kind of been history.
And so for us, our journey to become Swinky was a very different journey than Crimson and Phoenix's. They started with kink and BDSM. We had absolutely zero interest in kink and BDSM. In fact, our first SLS profile, the direct quote was, "We are very open-minded and with very few boundaries. However, we are not interested in BDSM." And at that time, that was a very true statement. And we were very scared. We found it very dark and dangerous and scary. And we had all of those negative negative stereotypes about kink and BDSM that are kind of prevalent in the swinger community because we were solely swingers. So until we met a play partner who was very much into kink and BDSM and brought us along very slowly and cautiously and in a very comfortable pace, that's how we wound. So that by the time we met these guys, we had already had a little bit of an introduction, and then that just continued to evolve and grow from there. And we continue to evolve and grow.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So when you all entered swinging and were exploring, could you have ever imagined that you would be in a poly dynamic that you are today? Was that something you were looking for, or it just kind of happened organically?
So I'll start from my side. So Tristan and I knew as soon as we started swinging, that we are connection, emotionally based people. And we said to each other instantly, we can't do this if we can't have feelings for other people. So if that's not okay, we need to stop. And we decided we would move forward knowing that both of us would somehow probably get feelings for partners that we played with. So we never were set out looking for this dynamic, but we opened ourselves, I think, to the experience if it presented itself. But we knew that meeting another couple, especially another married couple, that the odds of being able to all four connect were slim to none. And so why even worry about it? And Tristan and I always had talked about, we were very happy with our lives, and we didn't need to open up our lives any further to share them any deeper with other people on a regular daily basis. So we were definitely not looking for this. It wasn't even on the radar. And even if we had thought, gee, that might be fun, we knew it just didn't happen. So we were like, why get your hopes up? And so we just didn't want to get our hopes up, and we just were happy to meet other couples. And we always tried to meet couples that we would do things with and be friends with. And we wanted to have those friendships, not just always have the sexual relationships. But yeah, we didn't think that anything could grow from it because we'd always heard that just never happens.
Yeah, you proved them wrong.
And for me, when we first started talking about getting into the lifestyle, at that point in time, completely uneducated, unexperienced, the few things that I knew for sure that I said at that moment were, I don't want to just have anonymous sex with anonymous people. I want to meet amazing people and have amazing relationships. And those may only last for 30 minutes out of my life, but that's okay. It's still a relationship. It's not just sex in the back room with the lights off and I don't even know your name. So in that moment of being very uneducated, having spent, I don't know how much time on Google, in those early conversations, poly was actually the word that I used because it was the only word that seemed to fit. Swingers was all about just anonymous sex. And it's like, nope, that's not what I'm looking for. And so when I broached to the conversation, poly was the word I used. That did not get a very positive response in that moment.
No, it did
You
not.
can pick up on that and tell your side of that story.
Because when I heard poly, all I heard was moving in together and sharing households and life. And I'm like, that sounds way too complicated. We can barely, get our laundry done and things like that. So I just pushed back and said no. And I said, and then we kind of went back and forth. And so I finally said, well, I'll look into it. And I did. I started looking into, read some books, and I found out about swinging. And for me, that sounded like a lot of fun. It was just something we could do as a couple. We're not going to get all emotionally involved with people and just go out and have fun. And so I was not looking for poly at all.
Ha,
but as we
joke's
started,
on you.
Yeah, I know. Famous last words.
Never
But
say
as
never.
I didn't want anonymous sex. I wanted to be able to have friends with people, like go out and not just sex all the time. So I did want more of a friendship. But yeah, it's here we are.
I mean, our listeners know this was an argument Pinky and I used to have for the longest time. I would be like, I'm a swinger, I'm a swinger, I'm a swinger. And she'd be like, no, you're poly, you're poly, you're poly. Because I was building those relationships and having those friendships and having those strong bonds with the people I was involved with. So it took her a long time to get me to realize, okay, yeah, no, this is not just swinging. This is more of a poly dynamic.
Yeah, anytime you get involved.
That's one of the reasons that we try not to strictly apply labels to ourselves or anyone else, because at this point, we understand that no matter what label you use, it's incorrect to a large degree, actually, probably. And people tend to use those labels like you were describing as an exclusive descriptor. You're not a swinger, you're poly, and that's not me, so we don't match. And we're more like, yeah, well, today we're poly, but on Friday night at the club, we'll be swingers, and that's fine. That's cool.
It's a spectrum,
Yeah.
like everything.
Yeah, everything's a continuum.
And for the record, I am good with anonymous sex. But,
Yes, you are.
All right,
Me
for the
too.
record, absolutely, so am I.
Just putting it out there.
I would not want a steady diet of that. Every
that I
once
can
in a
agree.
blue moon, it's okay.
One of the very first things, I think it was, near the end of our first meeting at Naughty, when we were starting to talk about, well, let's get together after this and see because I remember one of the conversations that we used to reference about our original beginnings was someone actually said, so would you be interested in going to a movie or a football game or something? And we were like, yeah, that's awesome. And it was like this big surprise that we would actually be interested in being social outside of swinger activities and whatnot also. And it was one of the things that really brought us all together quickly.
That's interesting because it reminds me of recently, we have a couple that we play with. We have a few couples that we play with, and we asked one of these couples to go out to dinner with us. And they said, why?
Because we like food.
They were confounded by the fact that we wanted to have dinner with them, and so they came along, and we met at a restaurant, and then we went back and played, and we were done playing, and she said to me, that was really fun having dinner. We've never done that before. We just basically go and fuck, and I said, yeah, it's welcome to the to our side. It's it's nice to get to know people. And
well,
I like that the idea of what we're trying to do here on our end is to bring communities of like-minded people together, where poly, swinger community, and BDSM comes together. And it's been interesting. We had our party recently where we had bowling party together with all of them. And it was just so interesting to see how people connect and who stayed after the party, it was just like all my poly people like flew out, like out of the doors the instant it started to get like hot and steamy, which is totally fine. Like it's just not their thing.
It's also not really
It's
your
not
thing.
my thing either, because I get anxiety. I even if I know people, I still feel like it's something I can't really do. So now I have a green light to take off. So it's amazing. It feels so good. So when we have our parties, we get together, we have whatever, we have dinner or whatever, or a bowling event. And after that, we go to the next stage. We're getting into a hotel or whatever it is. I have a green light to leave. I'm like, yes, this is so amazing. Before, we had a problem with that because I would not show up the way those two beautiful people expect me to show up, where I would procrastinate to come to the event, or I wouldn't set up for the event, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And now I know it's my childhood trauma, where I'm not talking about anybody else, I'm talking about me, where I had been sexually assaulted when I was 15, and I did not know the person at all. And I just did not put two and two together, where in an environment where it gets so intimate for me and with people that I don't know, I get flustered and I get so frozen that I can't move. And thanks to a beautiful husband of mine who actually walked the walk with me over all those years, when he introduced me to a lifestyle, and this is how he introduced me to it. And then I finally, after 3 years of us doing this, now I'm saying more and more like I need this emotional connection. I need to know the person. I need to trust them. And it has to be vice versa. So long story short, it's funny how this whole thing coming closer to vision for me. Like you guys came into it from one end. We all came from different ends, and how we just kind of like evolve and learn about ourselves more and more every day. It's so wonderful. Thank you.
And we are finding on our end that the worlds can collide, because there are similarities there. And like she said, her poly people left. My poly people didn't leave. They stayed for the party and they stayed for the BDSM. So there is commonality amongst all the different groups. And like you had said, for me, it's very fluid. Today I'm poly, tonight I'm a swinger, it all kind of melds together, which is great.
And I think Phoenix's point was really important, is that the label sometimes can force you into a box. And so Ava, I would, for you, I would never say that you're not swinger because you like to have these relationships and things with people. I think for us, it was a little bit reverse. Like we were looking for relationships and we were looking to connect with people, but we were never going to be poly. That you can still have deep relationship, go out to dinner with people and have all those fun times. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're poly. I think it took us almost a year to actually admit to the four of us that we were in a poly dynamic, and we were practically like living together at that point in time. It's like, I guess we are kind of poly, oops, but we always kept and we still do. And that was a point we all made very clearly at the beginning, to be able to remain open. We wanted to remain swingers, and we wanted to honor each of our individuals' journey. And so when we all first got together and decided to become and claim it polyamorous, we also made sure we were all very secure with understanding that our play dynamic, we were free to move forward in whatever direction that we wanted. Crimson and I both had boyfriends at the time. We would still see, we would had other partners that we would actually see not common play partners, consistent, like we would see them monthly or whatever. And so those things were still honored. And so we were still able to move on with that within our relationship. So we left it very, very open.
Yeah, we describe ourselves, our official descriptor is, we are see if I can say it right, open, ethically non-monogamous, swinging, kinky, polyamorous foursome.
Yes.
That's our label.
There you go.
That's a label. And speaking of labels, because there's so many different labels out there that people will put, what's poly, what's kink, what's BD, all of these things. For me, I like simplicity. How I would describe mostly, and how I've been doing it mostly, I've had to actually do that with a friend of quite a few years recently, if you want to say, quote unquote, came out and said, this is what I'm about. And the way I describe it is like, we're non-monogamous. That's it. You don't have to describe, well, I'm poly, but we're swingers, but we're this. non-monogamy, I think people just get the idea, and then there's so many different aspects, which is what we describe this podcast, or the original 3 Shades of Grey, as a podcast about non-monogamy in all its different shapes and forms. And I think
And
that
people are
sometimes
curious.
I think that's just the easiest way, because there are a lot of things people say, well, you're not poly if you do this, and you're not really a kink, and you're not really a dom if you don't do this, and you're not sub if you don't do this, and you're not a switch, and you're not a... Everybody tells you what you're not. But what you
Right.
really are is non-monogamous and open.
And that's a really good point, because when we, especially in our classes and workshops, when we talk about labels, it's always very much an inclusive, and we really push back on the exclusive use of a label. And so a great example is, we have a couple of classes, and we switch them up, right? The class is designed to be flexible. If we're at a swinger event, then we're teaching about how you might be interested in kink and what kink can bring into your relationship. If we're at a kink event, we'll take that same class and we'll just flip it. And we'll say, here are the things in swinging that you might find interesting, that might help your relationship grow in new areas. And so in that conversation, one of the common things that we'll say is, if we're at a swinger event, we're teaching swingers about kink, and they're like, oh, but we're not kinky, we're not into BDSM. And we'll just ask a few simple questions like, do you ever pull her hair? Do you ever smack her ass? Hey, look at you. You're kinky, motherfucker. And so we're using that label as a very inclusive way of inviting people into our tribe instead of setting them out of our tribe.
I love that.
I love that.
Well, and
Yeah.
when I told Pinky about Ava and Ava's our dynamic, and I said, well, I'm in BDSM. Well, number one, when she heard, and I told her, hey, I'm into BDSM, first she mentioned a certain book movie, and I'm just like, nothing like that. And then she thought that I was walking around with a baseball bat, and I'm just like, horribly beating anybody who's a partner. And it's there's a mindset or an expectation that a picture people have in their mind about certain things. And when they actually see it and then they realize it or experience it, it's like, hey, that's not so bad. Like I had all these thoughts. She thought that I was leaving Ava in a bloody pulp in the middle of a room and just walking away, with a smile on my face.
It's called normalizing through exposure. Thank you very much.
You were exposed for sure.
Yes.
I think at our last party, it was a good example of how we're kind of trying to take down those walls and our boundaries. I mean, we had swingers there who, for the first time, experienced sensory play. They felt comfortable enough to let one of our guests blindfold them and experience with sensory play. And that was their first experience with something like that. Somebody
And
else
rope.
allowed, they let themselves be tied up. And they had never experienced that. So I think that's where the value is in kind of getting rid of those labels and encouraging people that, hey, you have an idea of what BDSM is, but throw on this blindfold and let us just touch you with the feather. I think she took a fork and was like running it down his muscles and, all that kind of stuff. And by kind of letting those labels and walls down, people were able to experience things in a comfortable environment, things they never expected themselves to experience.
Yeah, we come into this world with so much preconceived ideas that have been brainwashed through the society, through the screen, through the mass media. And then that's why I said before, the quote that I love is, what did you say?
Take your time.
Normalizing through exposure, where you really see it and you feel it, and then you make your own judgment of it rather than seeing it through somebody else's eyes. I love that. And thank you so much for showing me the way.
All right. So I have a question for the four of you. How have you grown, and more particularly, how have your boundaries grown? Because you mentioned when you started, like, we're going to be this and nothing more, and we're not going to be this and you put these boundaries, and now those boundaries have been shattered and more than likely replaced with newer ones. You mind going a little bit into that shift?
You want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. For me, it's as the starting point 7 years ago, and just for me generally, I have a lot of social anxiety and a lot of just generalized anxiety. And so these are not traits that are conducive to success in swinging. And so, just out of necessity, I have become much more outgoing and much more confident in my social skills and just being in social settings generally. Prior to swinging, we would spend every single night and every single weekend glued to the sofa watching sports, depending upon the season. Just, that's all we did. And so to then all of a sudden be going out, it's sometimes 7 nights a week. I mean, we hit the ground running. And yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah,
we also live in the Tampa, Florida area where there is a lot of opportunity to do a lot of things. And so, at first it was out of necessity that I kind of came out of my shell a little bit. It at first, basically pulled, kicking and screaming. But then I started to realize, you know what, I really, really enjoy this social aspect of our activities. And obviously I enjoyed the sex, but I started to actually enjoy just the socializing and going out and going to Caliente, our club that we go to, and going to in the resort that we go to, and meeting new people and having dinner with new people, and all of those social aspects. And so it's been a huge shift for me and a huge growth opportunity for me. And it's carried over into my career. It's carried over into, other family activities, and just being able to be more, interested in other people, and not always just because I want to fuck them, but a lot of the times I do, but,
It helps.
so it helps. Yeah, it absolutely helps. It's a motivator for sure. But and now when we go to Caliente or we go wherever, I really love it. And I'm like excited, and I get to meet people and I get to meet new people. And that's such a radical shift for me that, there's complete night and day from where I was 7 years ago. I think you would agree.
Absolutely.
I wanted to.
I'm often accused now of being somewhat of an attention whore, and
The life of the party
just a
now.
little, yeah.
The word attention doesn't need to be in that sentence.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
I wanted
that
to.
was an unnecessary qualifier.
I think for me, one of the biggest areas of growth in our relationships at all, and this ties back to, we talked a little bit earlier about the emotions and having feelings and being a little potentially self-protective about those things. Getting comfortable with that aspect of it. When we started this, one of the promises I made as part of how I want this to go for us was, along the way, as things evolve, whatever you want, the answer is always yes. And so now, we mentioned earlier, they both have boyfriends still. She'll come to me and she'll say, hey, Tuesday night of next week, I'd like to get together. Is that okay? And the answer is always yes. I don't even look at my calendar first. The answer is yes. Then I look at my calendar and see what I need to do to make sure that's going to be okay.
That can be dangerous.
That can be dangerous, right? That's vulnerability on my part to say, here's what I'm going to make sure always happens in this situation, because I don't ever want it to feel like she thinks she needs to negotiate for something. That is not what's going on here in any way. So, but right, making the deal and then being okay with it are two different things. And I think that's the part that's really grown through the years for us, to the degree that now we refer to our boyfriends and girlfriends. I know you wanted to come back to that. We refer to our boyfriends and girlfriends in our polyquad now as our OSOs, other significant other. And so now we've evolved to the point where we have OSO weekends. We'll pack up and Marina and I will head somewhere for the weekend, and Tristan and Crimson will head somewhere for the weekend. We vaguely have an idea where the others are going, but probably not too much detail often. And, we stay connected. Good morning, good night, Hope you're having a great time. And then we all come back together for dinner Sunday night, usually somewhere. Um, I don't know that that's something we'd have been particularly comfortable with in the first year, right? We had to kind of work our way up to every time you cross a new bridge, you need to get a little more comfortable with that now.
You
and see
grew
where
into
that-
it.
Yeah, we grew into it.
That's
And so
amazing.
I think that's been the biggest, for me, that's been the most important area of growth is that we become more and more comfortable saying yes and actually meaning it and being really, truly okay with it deep inside.
And for one thing, we did not have rules against what we're doing.
We were very good up front. Well,
we-
but we had a lot of help coming
Right,
in.
we did.
We had a lot. We worked with a counselor who had a little quiet subspecialty of helping monogamous long-term married couples open their relationships safely. And so
Wow.
before we ever did anything for real, we had spent months what ifing and talking our way through. What if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? We had our safe words and our cue words, and we had our rules, quote unquote. They lasted almost to the end of the first naked speed dating event. That was the end of that. And so now we have casual agreements that we try to honor. And if something shifts, we talk about it and it's fine.
And I wanted to point out though, I think that everything Phoenix's point of his just saying yes, that's for him. That's his growth and his decision about how he wanted to navigate the lifestyle for him and Crimson in their relationship. Tristan and I was not as like, sure, go right on ahead, do whatever you want. I was not that way, and it was never going to always be yes. Tristan said, well, I'll give you a yes for anything you want to do. And I said, that's awesome. You still have to ask every time. And it was totally true. And, but that's because that was my pace. And it wasn't, and even still, he'll reach out and say, Crimson and I are going to go do something. Is that okay? And I have also tried to adopt the place where Phoenix come from to say, of course, I'm not going to say no, but I still love the fact that he asks me. And then it gives me an opportunity to say, I'm not going to say no, but the hair did stand up on the back of my neck. And then let's talk about that why another time or some other time, or just a heads up. I don't feel great about it. Go ahead and do it. But something just about that. But that's just another way. I think you talk about growth and change, where before 5 years ago, it would have been like, oh, hell no, you're not doing that. And then that would have been in a discussion. And now the conversation is, yeah, I know I'm going to say yes because he wants to have this experience. What bothers me about that? And how can I relate that to him? And sometimes I don't even have to. It's on my own issue and I'll just own it and just be like, nah, I'll get over it, whatever it is. I don't know. But that for me is how my growth has changed. Or my boundaries.
It seems, just listening to all of you kind of touch on this, one of the common themes was communication, how you communicate with others, how you communicate with yourself, because self-talk is important. Like you just mentioned, Marina, that hey, sometimes whatever made the hair on the back of your neck stand up was something that you had to deal with that was just a problem with you. It had nothing to do with Tristan or the activity. It was just something in you that you were telling yourself, or an idea that you had of what was going on. So we mention a lot of times, which is something that Pinky enjoys, is, that open and raw communication. Communication is one of the biggest things that is necessary in this lifestyle. There's a joke that says if there was ever a series, a Netflix series
Netflix original
that's going to be on polyamory, and people are like, oh yeah, I want to see that. The first 2 seasons would be nothing but discussing what's going to happen. There would be no sexy time. There'd be no action or nudity or anything. It would just be the people just sitting down. Let's talk about this and talk about how you feel about this and process.
Yeah.
And that's there are 2 points there I wanted to draw out slightly. You said that when that happened, that was your issue and that you owned it. But one of the things that we all agree upon emphatically is the entire group moves at the speed of the slowest person in the group. So
Definitely.
if someone has real reservations about something that the other three are excited about, that can be challenging, but the agreement is we all move at the speed of the slowest person in the group. And then I'll also say, because we're happy to openly, honestly talk to anyone about anything that's going on in our relationship and dynamic, but we don't advertise all the parts of it, right? And we've had some horribly hard discussions. And when I say discussion, I mean 24-hour, half the weekend, not partying, just sitting in the hotel room talking out what happened last night. We've had those days, not tons of them, and they're not fun, but we do that, and we come back later and we talk about it, because that's the price we have to pay for the relationship that we're having. And I don't know of anyone who's in a real polyamorous relationship who doesn't have that experience. It's just human nature. There are going to be those moments where one person out of the four is just totally not on board with what's going on. And you have to work your way through that. And to that point, I will also honor that's Marina's strong point. She's the one who will knock on the door at 2 a.m. and say, I can't sleep. We're going to talk this out right now.
That's great.
Yeah, not at 2 a.m. It's not. But
I think
yeah,
Pinky and
great.
Marina are
Yes.
sisters.
Very similar, very similar. And I'm glad you bring that up, because my question to the four of you was going to be, how do you deal with conflict? And it seems like you deal with it in the moment, whether it's 2 o'clock in the morning or not, and you're going to discuss it until you come to a consensus. Is that pretty much how it goes?
I would say so. I mean, I think there are some times where we haven't had anything, knock wood. I don't want to knock anything. We haven't had anything major in a long time, but
It's been a while.
yeah, I think there's sometimes though, yes, we do that, but in jokingly and saying I've gotten better. There have been times where now is not the time to talk about it. Like, now you need to give everybody some space. And so that's where I'm saying I've gotten better about not wanting to force everybody to fight it out just because I want to fight it out. Like, it's going to go badly. You just know it's going to go badly. And so sometimes we have had like the 2 o'clock in the morning say, you know what, this is really not the time, and we're all hurting. And so we need to give each other some space and things like that. So I think we do pretty well at identifying those moments and times and coming back to it if we need to come back to it. And sometimes the stuff has been like, you know what, it's all right. It can work itself out.
And I think, not but a answer to your question is certainly there are times when there is no working it out. Some of us want to do A. Some of us think A is the stupidest idea on the face of the earth. That would probably be me if it's coming across that way. And there's no one's giving. No one is interested in giving. And we at least hear each other out. Everyone gets their say. And then we default to, we all move at the speed of the slowest person. And so that means we're probably not going to do A.
Wow.
And that's how it goes sometimes.
That's great that you allow yourselves to go back to that, because it has to be hard when that's not what you're feeling and that's not what you want to do, but you're willing to be like, okay, for the good of all of us, we're going to go at the slowest speed. That has to be very difficult at times.
And one of the things that I started saying early on, probably more than halfway through where we're at now, but I started referencing a little buzz phrase. We refer to ourselves as the square, because if you diagram us out on the dot line diagram of polyamory configurations, we're square. Each corner plays with two members of the other corners, but no one goes diagonally across the square. So I started saying the square actually makes us all better people. And I still firmly believe that. To put it in really pragmatic terms, the way I like to describe it is, if you've been married, you know how challenging that is. All of us is married to 3 other people, 2 of whom are married to each other. Just think about that for a moment. Give that time to sink in. I'm not just balancing Marina's wants against Crimson's wants. Tristan's my metamor.
I am a metaphor as well
You're a metaphor
for many things.
You can ask anyone else in the square of all the four of us. I'm the one who will be first to stand up and say, hold on, that doesn't feel like I'm being very respectful of my metamor if I do that. I'm not okay with that. That's important, you know. In a four-way relationship like this, I have to be respectful of his place in the relationship as well. I can't just say, oh, Marina and I are going to run off and do this. Fuck the two of you. Off we go. It's just never going to work that way. So
No, there's a level of respect that
the level of respect is huge.
Is
Oh, yeah.
huge. Even in our dynamic, we do our best to take each other's feelings into consideration. You have to, because one, I live with Pinky. Okay, so anything, it's like the anything that that's going on, I interact. We work together. We do this podcast together, and there needs to be a level of harmony. Do we always agree on everything that we sit down and talk about? No. Just even recently we had that, and it was, you know, the moment was like, yeah, nobody's listening to me, and then you go off, and then it's the silence go off for about a half hour, and then it's like, okay, we got the temper tantrum out. Let's deal with what's on the table and work things out. And you know, it's amazing just listening to your description or just your examples that you presented that resonate with us. And I am almost certain that anybody else listening to that is just like, that happens to us. It's you know, we're not the only ones. I thought this was everybody else, because you have this misconception that, particularly for us, and I guess even us to you guys, are, well, these people have a platform. They, you know, they hold classes. They must know everything and nothing goes wrong. And that could be the farthest thing from the truth.
Yes, thank you for recognizing that, how fabulous we are. We talk about it often, how fabulous we are. And the poor rest of the world isn't so fabulous because we're just so great. But I think, and that's absolutely true. And Ava, when you were asking the question and Phoenix was answering you and about the relationship and how we value and moving at the pace of the slowest person. But I think one thing, and Crimson and I would talk about this often, is that the bottom line, truly, when the rubber hits the road, is that this relationship between the four of us is more important, usually 99.9% of the time, more important than whatever the thing is. And
Sure.
so it's like, do we really, like, what at the end of it all is whatever this argument is about worth damaging this amazing relationship that we've built? And it doesn't mean we all have to agree. We don't even mean we have to agree at the end of whatever the discussion is, but is it worth damaging the relationship? And so that's usually where we end up stopping and respecting each other, and whatever we need to do, let's figure it out. But it's not worth, messing this up in a large scale.
I can
And just
totally.
Yes, and just in keeping that big picture in mind and what's truly important, and coupled with the fact that we are all genuinely willing to subordinate our own interests to the benefit of the four of us, it makes conflict not go away, but it makes conflict much more manageable, and we can manage it in an intelligent and an adult way.
I can see how that really makes a difference, because like for the three of us, for me, failure is not an option, right? Like our relationship is not going to fail. So I'm willing to make concessions. I'm willing to have the conversations. I'm willing to have the open and raw that Pinky wants, because I can't imagine our relationship not existing. So I'm willing to do anything to make it stay strong.
Oh, you mean you're not going to tuck it away and leave it until you're going to get home and talk about it later?
Listen, you make me talk when I don't want to talk. But if you remember, Marina said sometimes you can't talk in the moment. Okay.
And she's
I
the
want you-
expert. We've established. So
Yes. I want you to take that, Pinky, and remember that the next time.
Whatever Marina says is how it goes, and I know Pinky understands that.
Sometimes you have to keep working on the iron while the iron is hot.
Mm.
Yeah, you do.
That's what I say. She and I get it. That's how we're the emotional. It's the emotional reaction, but we also understand that you have to let the iron cool down every once in a while.
Yeah, once in a while, yes. But a lot of times, if I see there's an issue that can be resolved at the moment when it's happening, and it's so much more of how you come into it. And what's my husband always says: we're not fighting each other; we're fighting the problem. The issue is in front of us. It's not us. It's that issue we have to resolve for us to move forward. I love that statement.
And that's great. That's a great perspective.
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, you always say you don't necessarily hate a person. You hate what it is they've done, or you dislike what it is they've done, not necessarily the person itself. So once you figure out what's the issue, it's like, okay, let's figure out the issue and break it down and see what we can do. And going back to something that Phoenix was saying, one of the ways you said that you don't want to have to, I forgot how you placed it, you don't want to have to negotiate. I forgot how you placed said you don't want to have to negotiate with Crimson. I don't know if you remember that.
On the yeses?
I always say yes.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yes, I remember what you're saying. I don't want her to feel like she needs to negotiate with me to get anything she wants. It's always an absolute yes to her. She doesn't need to negotiate. Now, that's not to say, sorry to cut you off. That's not to say that if I'm uncomfortable, I don't express that. Absolutely. If I'm uncomfortable, I would express that. But at this point in our journey, she'd have to work really hard to make me uncomfortable. I mean, really hard.
Oh, that's
have you ever met this person before? No. How did you meet him? On Craigslist?
Oh my God.
Does he have a phone number? No, it was all done through WhatsApp. All right, go have a great time, baby. I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, no, that probably wouldn't work that way.
Well, number one, does Craigslist still exist? Okay.
I'm sorry, what?
I said, does Craigslist still exist? Number one. And I actually have a story. I actually sent a self-addressed stamped envelope away to somewhere to get a list of, like, a hand-stapled, double-sided page of P.O. boxes and beeper numbers of advertisements. Okay.
Man, that's old school, man.
Yes.
That's how long he's been doing this. What was that, the 90s?
Yeah.
And how'd that work out for you?
One meet and greet, but it's what you get for sending you. I think it was like, $25 you had to send the person to get the list or whatever.
Nice.
Technology.
But going back to what you said, the difference between the negotiation, something that we've talked about, I don't like the word compromise. When you compromise, it means that somebody is getting a shit end of the stick. But in a negotiation, and I like it from the business aspect, you're coming into something both with everything that you have. And if the negotiations don't work, you're not losing anything because you're still leaving with what you had. And I wanted to see if you might agree with that or not, or change your perspective on when you're saying you don't negotiate.
That's a good question. I hadn't thought of it that way to start with. I would struggle a little with that mindset personally because I see your point. You come into the negotiation with everything you have. It's very close to the answer is always no if you don't ask the question. But the expectation for a yes, the hope for a yes, the degree to which you're already emotionally bought into what you're entering into negotiating about, It can sometimes be hard to keep clearly separate in your mind what you came into the negotiation with and what you thought, wished, and dreamed you came into the negotiation with that you now stand a chance of losing. Technically, you're correct, but one of the big things that I'm learning at this journey in my life right now, much to my disappointment and chagrin, is that people don't behave technically. People behave emotionally.
Yes.
That's really hard for me to work with.
Oh yeah. You cannot meet logic with emotion. It is almost impossible. And if you've ever dealt with a 2-year-old, you know exactly what I mean.
Yeah, but with the 2-year-old, you just tell them to go to their room and you're done.
Yeah, like they're actually going to do that.
Well, no, but you won't feel guilty about everything they say on the other side of the door.
Very true. That's
true.
very true.
Another question I have for you, and among all of the advice that you have given and that people can glean from this episode, and this is for the 4 of you, what is one piece of advice that you would give to somebody who is listening to this right now and said, you know what, I want to see what those wacky upside down pineapple whip having crazy multiple 25,000 partner people are doing? What is one piece of advice you would give to somebody who's looking to step over that line? And we'll
I'll
start.
go, first of all.
Okay.
First of all, I'd like to say that if we, the 25,000 mark is very aspirational, and I'm doing the, like, if I amortize that over the probably, maybe 20, 30 years I have left, wow, that's pretty impressive. No, seriously, it's easy for me to just say, just try it, because there's so much vulnerability and so much danger involved, to just say, oh, just go try it. You can't, we've talked ad nauseum about, the preparation and now in our case, we did just jump in, but I think we're a pretty rare couple that, that we were able to do that successfully. And so, yes, try it, but try it intelligently. Don't do it the way that we did it. Do it the way that they did it, which is in a very measured and thoughtful, intelligent way. But don't allow the fear of what might go wrong to deter the benefit that you can derive from this lifestyle. And the benefits that you can derive from this lifestyle are incredible. And, we talked earlier about, for me personally, my personal growth. What I didn't talk about is the growth in our relationship that has resulted from this. And that relationship growth comes from all the other things that we were talking about, particularly communication and the depth and level of communication that's required to be successful in this, and the vulnerability that's required to be successful in this. The vulnerability to my wife, the vulnerability to my girlfriend, the vulnerability to myself to, admit things that I want and that I want to try and that I want to do. All of those things, the vulnerability creates intimacy, and that intimacy then has resulted in amazing relationship with my girlfriend and an amazingly enhanced relationship with my wife. So the benefits are certainly there, and I think very well worth the risk. But you can't just ignore the risk.
And something else you need to do is give yourself grace and give your partner grace, because you will both make mistakes. And so you have to, not throw in the towel and say, that's it, just be able to talk it out, but, forgive each other and give each other grace along the way, because mistakes are going to happen.
One of the other things I think fits really well here also, don't sell yourself short, no matter where you are or who you are in life. We talk often, one of the big changes for Crimson and I, for me personally especially, our whole concept of growing older was based on our parents. Spoiler, terrible role models for the lifestyle. Terrible. And so, as our journey unfolded, we, as I mentioned earlier, naked speed dating, true fact, That was where we jumped into the lifestyle. We were at Naughty. No. We were at Secrets, soft grand opening. And we had never done anything, lots of prep, but we had never connected with anyone yet. A few failed attempts at house parties and stuff. That was it. And we go to Naked Speed Dating. We meet this couple. We connect with them. We have an amazing weekend. They also live close by. And so we became good friends with them for several years. And they were very well integrated into the community at Caliente, which is the resort near us here. And there's just this huge, vibrant community there. But many of the members were slightly older than us. And what we didn't quite understand, but learned very quickly, like within 2 house parties, people in the lifestyle fucking take care of themselves. And so these people look amazing, and they're vibrant and energetic and active. And you go to the house parties and you're having a great time, and then you play with somebody, and then you're laying in beds afterwards and you're having a conversation, and they're like, yep, I grew up here and I went to school there, and now my daughter goes to school over here, and my 3 grandkids. And you start doing the math in your head, and you're like, holy shit, that's insane. I could be like that active and good looking and happy and vibrant when I'm that age. We had no idea. We literally had no idea that life in your late 60s and early 70s could be that amazing. And so it totally changed my perspective on what my future looks like. Now, all of a sudden, I got to start taking care of myself, right? And we all have done many things in the last 5 years to very proactively start to change the trajectory of where our lives physically and emotionally were headed, because we're in this for a much longer haul now. And I think that's been one of the big things for us, is to have that kind of adjustment and to say, age isn't what I thought it was. And I need to take more proactive action to make sure this continues to go well for a long time.
So you're saying there's a chance at that 25,000 for me?
Yeah.
There's a chance. The odds are not in your favor.
Listen, shoot for the
But,
moon.
better living through creative chemistry.
There's all that. Yeah, you have to actually do the take care of yourself part of it.
Yeah, that's
I also,
Of course.
Not pointing any fingers.
This body brought to you by Yingling,
Yeah.
the official beer of the Accidental Swingers.
By default. By default. 1,000,000% by default. And I would just say for my little 2 cents of a piece of advice is that I would be open. Do yourself a favor and just be open, and just be open. I mean, trust yourself, trust your partner, trust your gut, your instincts, do the research, listen to podcasts, read books. If you think it's something that would interest you, be open and start to talk about it. And you're gonna have to be comfortable talking about it. So that's the time to start the process of realizing that it's never going to be successful if you don't communicate. So start off with going, gee, I heard this crazy podcast and these people, these threesomes were talking to these foursomes, and I didn't even know what the sums were and what does poly even mean, or whatever that looks like. And then start to talk about it and be open for the person to say, oh my God, no, hell no, I would never do that. Because there are so many other people that then will say, yeah, I don't really know. I haven't really thought about that, but let's talk about that. Or what would that look like? And Tristan and I, even though we did fall into the lifestyle accidentally, we did. It was an accident. We didn't know these people were swingers. They thought we would make great swingers, and they were right, and we do. But it gave us the opportunity. Beforehand, we had talked about it because we would watch shows like HBO Real Sex or something like that, and we would watch shows and we would say, "Wow, would we ever do something like that?" And I think that really laid the foundation for us that when it happened, we were able to take advantage of it.
I do wanted to point out one aspect that it's obvious, but nobody talked about it, the community that you have created and that we have been creating it since the moment you opened up and you just walked into it without knowing where you're going. And now looking back, I'm not sure how many years, like 8 years now between two couples?
7, 8
We've been in
years.
for 8.
Yeah, we've been in for 8.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. 7 for us. Yeah.
Yeah. So that long of a span. And that's what like my goal is, to build a community of like-minded people so we can have sex until we die.
Yes. We're
Those
going
are
to open up
goals.
that hippie commune. We keep talking about
Yeah.
that. When is that coming along? But we got to open that up at some point.
Yep.
A retirement home hippie commune. So that
If
we're all gonna
anybody
go
has
to
about, I don't know, 150 acres somewhere, let us
Right.
know.
At
Right.
least.
Yes.
At least. But I think you're absolutely right. And I think the thing is, Pinky, is that it doesn't have to be the people in community, quote unquote, don't have to check all the boxes. We talked about this earlier. You guys' dynamic is so totally different than ours, but we're all community.
Right.
So
Mhm.
so enjoy that with each other, love that with each other, be open with that about each other. That is how we will continue to grow community and to help each other, and to be able to people to say, maybe that's not your journey, but this type of relationship is your journey. And have you tried that, or just whatever? But absolutely, just being supportive of like-minded people. And it doesn't, we say it all the time, especially I think in my journey for myself. I have become so much more open about other people's desires to do things and the way that they want to experience life. It doesn't mean I have to agree with it. It doesn't even mean that I want to try it for myself. It doesn't even mean I have to want to do it, but I'm so much more open about people.
Yes.
Be your authentic self, go for it, whatever that looks like. I had a hard time with that before. And again, it doesn't mean that I want to do it or embrace that, but I certainly can say, oh my God, more power to you. And that to me is building community.
I love that.
Definitely love that. And we've been talking for a little bit now, and we want to wrap things up. But before we do, can you guys tell us what's next for Swinky Life and Accidental Swingers? Like, I know you guys hold classes, do vacation getaways, and you are at different events and throughout the year that are lifestyle related. Actually, one in particular, I think you did this past winter or past holiday season, was your swingcation. And would you mind sharing a little bit about that, and also letting others know, if, from what they hear now, the little tidbits they're getting here, what to expect for future ones?
Sure. So we had our first swingcation last year. It was in December, and we had it at Hito in Jamaica. It was a week-long event, and pretty standard kind of conference format, right? You come, you stay on property, all-inclusive resort. We had educational tracks and experiential tracks through the day. It was a small, intimate event, and we took care not to make the schedule too busy. We wanted to give people time to explore and connect. The whole point. So this takes us back to, this is kind of the culmination of what we envisioned when we started Swinky Life. The whole point here is to bring swingers and kinksters together so that they can learn from one another in a safe, non-threatening environment. At house parties and whatnot, we all the time meet and talk with people who have all of these questions about the other team, and all of these misconceptions that they got from books and movies they may have seen or read. And so, part of our whole jam is clearing those misconceptions up, answering those questions, and being inviting for them to come into whichever community they're interested in exploring. House parties are really bad situations to have those conversations. Everyone's focused on what's going on at the moment. Time is really critical. There's round 1, round 2, round 3, go home. You don't want to be sitting around talking. So we wanted to really carve out a space and a time to bring these people together so that they could get to know each other and explore. That's the whole point of Swingcation. It was our first one last December. We had an amazing group of presenters that we were able to pull together with the friends and connections that we've made over the last several years. And it was just a wonderful event. Everyone had an amazing time. We all came out of it, family and friends. It really exceeded our expectations. We were thrilled with it. And so kind of the way Hito works, if you're the new kid on the block, which we were last year, you get to pick from whatever dates are left over after everyone else has signed up for the year. That's how we ended up having Swingcation the week before Christmas. If it goes well,
No, this year.
Yeah.
this year,
We already are
right?
better.
That's what I was saying. If your initial event goes well, which it did, then you get more choice. So literally the day we left last year, we booked out the dates for this year, which will be October
11th through 18th.
11th through 18th. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so we're full on into the initial throes of marketing and early bird registration. We're going to.
If you're interested and want to go with us, check out the website.
Website
Yes.
is swingcation.com.
We have
and
rooms still available.
We still have rooms available. Early bird
They're going
registration
coming
is
up.
in full
Let's say,
swing.
and that's getting ready to end soon.
And that's getting ready to end soon. So there'll be classes and experience stations. We're going to bring back one of the popular events, which was we called Swingkari, which is an intensive for rope. We did 5 days last year, and we take you from wherever you're at, which is this is rope. Hold it in your hand, see what it feels like. And on Friday, everybody suspends their partner with great oversight from the instructors, but you do it all yourself. That was
If
the
you
whole.
could see the look on Pinky and Ava's faces right now on that,
So
I
we're
think-
going to be repeating that.
I think you've sold them. Yeah.
So we'll be
Guess
seeing
where we
you
were going.
We'll be seeing you in October. Yay.
Look forward to it. It was awesome. It was such a great time because for me, being a rigger and a top, for me, the rope class is just my absolute favorite. To see someone accomplish something, to see that look on their face when the light bulb goes on and they say, I can really do this and this is so fucking cool. I love that moment. I live for that moment. And so we had this great time. We enjoyed the event tremendously. The people, our promoters and organizers have been doing this a long time. Concations, shout out. And they do a great job at helping us put the event together. And they know everyone at Hito. They've been there for years. And so it really helps smooth things over because business there is a little different than business here and how we're used to doing business. You have to shake hands and make verbal agreements and be very patient and believe that at the last moment things are going to show up, and they usually do. And that's really cool, but that would drive me insane. I couldn't live that way. So great thanks and shout outs to our promoter and organizer. So that's our event. We're really looking forward to this year. We're going to take everything we learned from last year and roll it back in. And we would love to see anyone there who would like to come and learn more from the other side.
So Swingcation in a nutshell is an event. If you are a swinger and you want to learn about kink, come to our event. If you're a kinkster and you want to learn about non-monogamy and open relationships, come to our event, because we are the folks that are attracted to the middle of the bell curve people. And so you just want to learn, you just want to be open. You don't have to participate if you don't want to, but it is a way and a space and a place to come in a safe environment and explore and ask the questions and how do we do this, and be able to not understand it, but get the education, the information that you want in an amazing, gorgeous tropical setting of Hito, an all-inclusive resort. And we even did some excursions and we really became friends, and it really was just an amazing event. So that's really it in a nutshell. It's a place for everybody to come, either side, and be comfortable to explore the other side of it.
Where else are we going this year already?
We're going back to New Orleans. We always go back to New Orleans.
Kinky College?
New
We're going to
Orleans.
Kinky College.
And
Naughty New Orleans is in July this year, so we'll be there for that. That event is July 9th through
to the 13th.
13th, yeah. 9th through the 13th, and that's a full takeover of 2 hotels in the French Quarter.
Actually, it's 3 this year.
Well,
from
it's
my
okay,
understanding.
yeah. We actually always have a couple of overflow hotels. We actually have a couple of extras, but we are doing 2 full complete takeovers, and then and we are doing the event a little bit different this year. The Nopsey Hotel is going to be the kink hotel. So we are actually taking the dungeon and only having it at the Nopsey, but the entire dungeon will be the ballroom at the Nopsey. So anyway, it's super fun. Again, a lot of these Swinky type opportunities for people to come and learn all about all different lifestyles. So that's going to be in July. And then, as you mentioned, Kinky College, it's coming up in March.
Just in a few weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we're also going
And
to
what
be
is
at
Kinky
Splash.
College? I'm sorry.
Kinky College is a kink-centered event that's happens in Chicago twice a year. They actually do it as spring break and homecoming, and so this is spring break for Kinky College, and very similar. It's a lot of workshops and events and networking and meeting amazing people and being able to play in their fabulous dungeon. They do an amazing dungeon every year, twice a year, and it is very educational and very similar to it's a kink education event. And so we go, and they oftentimes will ask us to talk about being open and open relationships, and we'll be discussing that at Kinky College in a few weeks.
And Splash Atlanta in May. We know we're going to that one as well. I think it's the third weekend in May, if I'm not mistaken. Or yeah,
right before Memorial
it's right
Day.
before Memorial Day.
So, so come meet us at Splash. We'll be
Absolutely.
there for that too.
We'll be in Atlanta for that.
You can also check out our websites, accidentalswingers.com or swinkylife.com. It has our travel calendar and events on there. So they will show where we're going and how to join us if you want to join us.
Okay. And we'll have all of that information posted down below in the show notes and be promoting those things. Well,
the other, hang on, really quickly though, we're also we've mentioned Caliente a couple times in this podcast. We are this will have happened by the time this particular podcast comes out, but we are hosting a weekend at Caliente this coming weekend. But then also in September, we're hosting another Thursday to Sunday, and I'm not exactly certain what those dates are, but that will be on our website as well. And so that we're co-hosting. The Thursday, Friday, Saturday parties, and then we're going to be there the entire time, hanging out poolside, partying in the club. Yeah.
And that is a September, the 25th through, sorry, Crimson, I didn't realize you grabbed it. The 25th through the 28th.
Yeah, so come and meet us and hang out with us and party with us.
My birthday weekend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Fun.
that's the theme for that weekend. We got birthday spankings.
Well, we definitely appreciate the time and the effort. And it really was an effort to finally get together and get this interview done. Maybe we'll add some of the outtakes. I don't know.
There's plenty of them.
Yes, but
Absolutely.
we appreciate you giving of yourselves your time, the one thing that you can never get back, and we definitely appreciate that. Do you ladies, Ava, you have anything that you want to add before we wrap up?
Just thank you for joining us and being patient with us through all of our technical difficulties. And we appreciate your help and the insight you gave us on your relationship and the way you do things. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
And Pinky?
I was going to say,
go ahead.
one more thing really quick. I'm sorry. I forgot our YouTube channel. So you can find us on our YouTube channel, and the four of us are often on there and talking about our relationship stuff too. So if that piece of our dynamic interests you, you can tune into our YouTube channel for a lot more kind of when we review places we've been or things like that. Some of those episodes happen.
So just search Accidental Swingers on YouTube and we'll pop right up.
Awesome.
Well, I know when you're a child, they always tell you, go ahead and play. Go, keep playing. Why aren't you playing? And when you grow up, which you were referring to, one of you before, I don't remember who exactly was talking about the idea of being in a committed relationship and just, coming home and watching TV, and just like repetitive kind of a style of living. And the whole idea of us exploring something different and keep playing like as an adult. Like I'm coming into this space now and I'm learning so much about myself of how much I loved being a kid. And now I'm like rediscovering this kind of person that I loved being when I was a kid, and also being accepted by my significant other who says, go play. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so wonderful. So I just wanted to finish this conversation, amazing conversation where we all have something similar, where the light comes into my life is through creativity, because I'm an artist. And that's one of the parts of us exploring that aspect and never stop playing. I love that.
That's beautifully
Awesome.
stated. Thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you.
All right. Once again, if you want to get more information on our amazing guests, you can check out their website, swinkylife.com, and all of the other information about their events we will have down below in the show notes. So from myself, Anthony, my beautiful wife, Pinky, and my girlfriend, Ava, and Swinky Life, we'd like to thank you for listening and look forward to our next episode. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Stay salacious.